national perspective so that we can learn about it from a local perspective. So when we talk about what is the duty of the state in local government, what is the duty of the state in federal government, then we also can make this application, what is the duty of the local government to the state? So those things work in the exact same manner. And then what we'll do is I'll take you through some aspects of the California Constitution so you can see, because we don't study, there's a lot of, I don't know what you call it. I would say people are enamored with federal politics. And we've been kind of siren songed into federal politics for so long that we've neglected local politics. What's happened to your state, what's happening in your state, could not happen without the people and their lack of attention to local government for an extended period of time. Now, I understand that the state of California is so far outside of your state constitution when it comes to representation. You are supposed to have your house reapportioned a long time ago. And right now, your state in Sacramento is grossly unconstitutional in the number of representatives that you have. And the reapportioning of the House based on the census and population has been neglected for so long that you're actually not operating as a Republican government anymore. The problem is California has grown so much and the state is so large geographically that if you followed your constitution and had the proper apportionment of House reps, and this is not really an exaggeration, it would take the entire city of Sacramento to house just the House of Representatives. And so that's why I think a lot of your frustration comes because you feel like you're underrepresented. And your representatives, I mean, if I can't see all your faces, but give me a show of hands if you think that your representative doesn't pay attention to you. Well, that's because your representative represents way too many people. It's physically impossible, politically impossible for your representative to represent you. And so that's one of the big problems that you're dealing with. And that came about because the people of California just have checked out for so long in engaging in local government politics. And so, that's not an anti-California thing. I give the same presentation to every other state in the union because every other state has failed to maintain local government because of this fantastical view that we have of the federal government. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to share a screen with you, and we're going to go through this lesson really quickly, just so you can grasp some of the concepts that, okay, so it says host disabled participant screen sharing. Can you reestablish participant screen sharing for me?
Debbie.
Do you know how to do that?
Debbie, so give a thumbs up when you did it, Debbie. You're muted.
Oh, I'm good. There we go. Okay, so where are we? There we are. All right, you guys see this slideshow, right?
Yeah.
All right, super. So just as a little preview, these are all the places that you can find me. This actually is a picture of me and my husband. My husband and I do the weekly radio show, our podcast called The Daily Journal. And you can find The Daily Journal 6 p.m. Eastern time in all of these formats. The iTunes, Google Music Play, SoundCloud. The audio podcasts come after the show, but we are live on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter Monday through Friday at 6 p.m. Eastern time. And what we do is we take current events that you see in the news and we teach from a constitutional and principled perspective. So when I teach, I want you to realize that the foundation for my teaching is always historical accuracy. So we deal with original source text only. And you won't hear me quoting uh, textbooks. You won't hear me quoting politicians. What we deal with is what do the documents themselves say, and what do the people who wrote the documents say.
409.
So this class is called Restoring the Constitution Functioning as a Constitutional Republic. Our survey of this class is asking the proper questions.
62.
What is the duty of the state legislator? How does that duty exist? What is the separation of power between state and federal government? And what is the check on federal power? And how do we enforce the Constitution? Now, what I want you to look at in this from a local perspective is what is the duty of the state legislator? What is the duty of the governor on a local level? What is the duty of your county? Or I think you call them assemblymen. Is that right? Assembly members, or do you call them county commissioners on the local level? I see Natalie trying to, there you go.
I was trying to unmute myself.
Yeah.
Say that one more time.
So at the local level, in Florida, we have county commissioners. What do you call yours?
Well, we're kind of in the middle. We have half of our city is county and the other half is city.
So you have city council members and county commissioners. Do you still call them that? Okay. Because some people call them different things. I just came from Arkansas and they don't call them county commissioners. They call them justices of the peace. So it's just, I just want to make sure I'm using the right language.
Board of Supervisors.
What's that again?
Board of Supervisors.
Ah, okay. Wow, that's a terrible name. As if you guys need to be supervised by a board. So what is your, and remember, these are principles that I'm going to be teaching you today, so they apply on the local level. What is the duty of someone who takes your oath? I mean, I think that would probably be the simplest thing. Because in California, you have a specific oath. And let me go ahead and put that up there for you so you guys can see that. How many of you are familiar with your state oath of office? Hello, Zoom. There we go.
Think we can all do better.
All right. So here is your oath of office. I'm trying to get this thing out of the way so I can read it. I do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California against all enemies, foreign and domestic. That I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of California. And I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion. And that I will faithfully discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter. Now, I want you to notice some things in that oath as we go into our discussion today about the proper power placement of government. Okay, so your oath of office is really clear. And what we should understand as a people, that an oath is a vow. It's a promise. It's a pledge by those you've entrusted to you. A promise solemnized by a vow. And so what you have here is a promise that's twofold. Support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California. What? Against what? All enemies, foreign and domestic. Now it goes on to say, I bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California. And I take this obligation freely without mental reservation or purpose of evasion. Now, what that means is the duty of everyone who holds office is to support and defend these constitutions without hesitation, without deviation, without question in any way, shape, or form. Now, I want you to notice something, and I know you're all muted, so you don't have to answer out loud. But I'm going to give you a second to look and think. Can everybody read this? I don't know how it looks on your screen, but think about this. this is a vow, a promise to the people, to the Constitution of the state of the United States and the Constitution of the state of California. What is missing in that vow? Now, you don't have to answer out loud. I just want you to think about it for just a second. What's missing is a promise to support and defend the laws of the state of California. And that's because if you support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the state of California, then you will support the laws that are constitutional. But if you have a vow that says you will support the laws of the state of California, what happens when the law conflicts with the Constitution? So what you need to know is that the people who drafted your California Constitution had the wisdom to know the distinction that when laws contradict the Constitution, you have no obligation whatsoever to support and defend them. And as a person, you have no individual obligation to follow them, to be obedient to them. And that's a very, very important thing, because here's the thing. You will hear your elected officials say, especially your sheriff, legislators, I don't know, I hear it all the time. We took a vow to enforce these laws. It's my job to enforce these laws. No, you didn't. You took a vow to enforce the U.S. Constitution and the Constitution of the state of California. You did not take a vow to enforce laws. Notice what else is missing. There is no promise to keep the people safe. There is no promise to keep the people healthy. There is no promise to increase the prosperity of the people. Now, first and foremost, there is no promise to that because, number one, if you're following the Constitution of the United States and you're following the Constitution of the state of California, prosperity, individual security will naturally occur. But what we have to understand is that our constitutions are built on the foundation of self-governance. That's what a constitutional republic is built on, self-governance, which means you have a limited and defined government, and the majority of the responsibility for your everyday, day-to-day life is supposed to fall on the shoulders of the individual. And so that's your Constitution of the state of California in your oath of office. And that's what I wanted you to see before we continue with our PowerPoint. Oops, I forgot. There's always a flow to these things, and I can always forget to, let's see. All right, so keep these questions in mind. These are the things that we're going to do. How do we check the power being exercised by the governor? How do we check the power that's being exercised by the legislature? Keep these principles in mind as we're teaching these things. How do we enforce the Constitution? So what is the duty of the state and local representative? Now I'm going to show you the, hold on one second. Mac. Sorry, I have a dog that cannot be physically separated from me without going into mental distress. So sorry about that. So this is the address of the General Assembly to the people of the Commonwealth of Virginia, January 23rd, 1799. Now, I'm giving you this quote because it's probably one of the most complete descriptions of the state and local government that we have. And I'm going to read it with you. Unwilling to shrink from our representative responsibilities. Now, this is an explanation to the people of Virginia what the main purpose of the state legislators will be in regard to federal power. So they said, unwilling to shrink from our representative responsibilities, it would be deceitful in those entrusted with the guardianship of the state sovereignty. Job number one of your state legislators when it comes into the role of the federal government is to guard the sovereignty of the state. And they have that first and foremost obligation because they're acting under the oath, I do swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States. Now, you know California has that oath. And they're saying that because of that oath of supporting the Constitution of the United States, we must guard the sovereignty of the state, and in your case, the sovereignty of the state of California. How do they guard the sovereignty of the state of California? They guard the sovereignty of the state of California by warning you of encroachments. And in this case, we're talking about federal encroachments. What is the most frequent and most powerful form of federal encroachment? Just think about that for just 1 second. The most frequent and the most powerful form of federal encroachment is federal funding. That's how the federal government takes over the governance of your state through what I would call extortion, through what we would also call stealing power from the state. Now look at how they describe these encroachments. They said, although these encroachments may be clothed with the pretext of necessity. How many of you heard in the last 6 months that we have to shut down your business because it's necessary? That we have to make you wear masks because it's necessary? That you have to stay home because it's necessary? We have to have a curfew because it's necessary. One of our founders, his name is William Pitt the Younger. He gave a speech in 1783, and he said, necessity is the plea for every infringement of human freedom. It is the argument of tyrants, and it is the creed of slaves. So one of the things that I hope that you take away from this is whenever you hear someone in government tell you that something is necessary and is justified by that necessity to set aside your right, whether it be to speech or your liberty to live your life, your property rights, whenever they tell you that it's justified by some necessity, what they're doing is telling you that they're either a tyrant or a slave. And that's not American principle. American principle is that the people have an inalienable, a natural right to life, liberty, and property, okay? And in that, we don't have a right to acquire property that we want, but once we possess property, we have an inherent right to control that property without government intrusion, and we have a right to have that property without the government taking it without due process. So what they're saying is that when you hear the government say it's necessary to take this from you, it's necessary to do this, you already know right away that by the use of the term necessary, it is an encroachment upon your rights. Because think about it, if they're following the Constitution, why do they have to justify doing it? The only reason you get fear mongering, the reason they tell you you have to let us do this, the only reason they tell you it's absolutely necessary is because they know that they are violating your rights and they want you to let them do that based on whatever justification they've invented. So that's something you need to know, that when they say necessity, it is absolutely an encroachment. How do other encroachments come? They are disguised by the argument of expediency, right? Well, we realize that no property can be taken without due process and just compensation. But what you have to understand is we have to act now, because if we don't act now, There'll be bodies in the streets. Does that sound familiar? As soon as they tell you they don't have time to respect your rights, you should already know that this is an encroachment. And your state legislators are supposed to be the sure guardians of the people's liberty by guarding you against encroachments. And I will tell you that's either whether they're federal encroachments or domestic encroachments because you have somebody operating outside their governmental authority. So here's what I want to do. I want to show you a little bit more of the California Constitution, okay? Now remember, we're talking about encroachments. Sorry, it just takes time to switch between screens and get all this stuff up here for you. Okay. This is your California Constitution, Article 4, and this article deals with legislative power. Read what this says with me. Section 1, legislative power of this state is vested in the California legislature, which consists of the Senate and Assembly. But the people reserve to themselves the powers of initiative and referendum. Now, that means that if you want to have a law passed by ballot, you can have a ballot initiative to pass the law. But I want you to focus on what Section 1 says. It says legislative power of this state is vested in the California legislature. What that means is the only branch of government with the authority to write laws in California is the legislative branch. Now let's go to Section 5, the executive branch. The supreme executive power of the state is vested in the governor. The governor shall see that the law is faithfully executed. Okay? The job of the governor is to execute law, not write law. The power of the government, of the legislature, is to write law. So in proper context, your legislators write law, your governor executes law. Now, when you have a situation where the governor is writing law, what you have is a violation of separation of powers. This is what we call encroachment. So the governor is now encroaching on legislative authority. Now remember, the job of the state legislator is to warn the people from encroachment, to make sure that the people are safe from encroachment. So what we have to understand in that is that the legislature of the state of California is failing to do their job when they allow the governor to write law, when it is the legislator's authority only to write law. And what they'll say is, well, the governor isn't writing law, he's writing an executive order. Well, an executive order that is enforced as law is no different from law. And that is a clear violation of separation of powers. Your California Constitution supports this doctrine of separation of powers. As a matter of fact, let me go ahead and I'm going to unshare this screen for just a second and go to the next screen. All right. Now remember, we're talking about encroachments. It's the job of your legislature to make sure that encroachments are not happening. This is Article 3 of the California Constitution. Read Section 3. The powers of the state government are legislative, executive, and judicial. What does it say next then? Persons charged with the exercise of one power may not exercise either of the others except as permitted by this Constitution. So when your governor is issuing executive orders that are enforced by law, not just simply enforced by law, but enforced with criminal penalty, what you have is not simply a violation of Article 5 and Article 4 of your Constitution. You also have a violation of Article 3, Section 3 in your Constitution, violation of separation of powers. Now, James Madison said, as our federal government is also set up with separation of powers, that when the power of legislature and executive is combined into one body or one person, liberty cannot survive. So what you have is the person who's in charge of enforcing the law also writing the law. And politically speaking, that's not a governor, that's a king. So continuing with our understanding, then we have to make sure that we understand that as the legislative branch, as a check and balance, it is the promise, it is the job, it is the number one job of your state legislature to make sure that there are no encroachments on the powers, the rights, and of the people. Now, I want to share with you, let me see where this is. The Declaration of Independence. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights. Now we know that it goes on to say life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. In my classes at libertyfirstuniversity.com, I teach this important lesson about what the origin of that pursuit of happiness means. And to our founders, that pursuit of happiness was a huge box that contained all property rights. They believed that the pursuit of happiness was directly and intimately related to a person's individual right to control and maintain the property that they own without government intrusion. Now, that should really strike home to us in understanding that we've had governors now telling us that we have to shut down our businesses out of fear, not out of reason, not out of logic, not even out of science, but just out of fear and government power, when the whole purpose of government is to secure rights. Listen to what it says. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men deriving their just power from the consent of the governed. Now, think about this. The date of this document is July 4th, 1776. Now, we haven't gone through the whole lesson, but I want you to think about this. What are the only governments that exist in America right now, July 4th, 1776? Well, before we declared our independence, we were all colonies of of Great Britain. So prior to July 2nd, 1776, Virginia was a colony owned by Great Britain. New York was a colony owned by Great Britain. Every colony was the subject of the Crown of Great Britain. And on July 2nd, not July 4th, by the way, July 4th is the day that we declared our independence. We actually legally became independent on July 2nd, 1776, with the ratification of the Lee Resolution. And the Lee Resolution was taken up on July 2nd, 1776 by the Continental Congress. It was debated, voted, and ratified into law. So on July 2nd, 1776, our Continental Congress, as a matter of congressional law, established that we were no longer colonies of Great Britain, but that we were now free and independent states. So our independence, by the way, just a little bonus for your educational dollar, was not the subject of a bunch of rich, elite, white wig wearing slave owners who wanted to keep people oppressed. Okay. It was a legislative act conducted by people who were representing the people of the colonies. It was a legal act, just as legally binding as anything that our Congress does today that's constitutional. And so on July 2nd, 1776, we became independent. Just a little bit of trivia for you. On July 3rd, 1776, John Adams wrote home to his wife, Abigail, and said that July 2nd will be an epic day where Americans will celebrate their independence forever. And then he talked about the pomp and circumstance and illuminations, which we call fireworks now, and guns and food and just big parties that we would be having on July 2nd, 1776, because that's actually our Independence Day. And it wasn't until the mid-1800s that we started celebrating independence on July 4th. So, Declaration of Independence says that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just power from the consent of the governed. So the only governments that existed on July 4th, 1776 were the states. So the only purpose for the states to exist is to secure the rights of the individual. And that's how it's supposed to work. Not to take the rights of the individual, not to control the rights of the individual, but to secure them. Now, I want to show you, we're going to pop out of here real quick. I'm going to go take you back to the California Constitution before I give you the solutions to your problems. I want to take you to your Article 1 Declaration of Rights, okay? And we're going to go through this because this is really, really important. All right, everybody see that? All people, Section 1, Article 1, Section 1, all people are by nature free and independent and have inalienable rights. That means these rights are not given to you by your Constitution, and you don't need to ask permission from the government or the governor to have them. Now look what it says. This is your California Constitution. Among the inalienable rights that you possess are life and liberty, acquiring, possessing, and protecting property. Now, I want you to realize that this is not the inalienable right of the government. It is not the right of government to acquire, possess, and protect your property. This is referring to your individual right to acquire, possess, and protect your own property, and pursuing and obtaining safety, happiness, and privacy. Once again, speaking in reference to an individual right. It is not the obligation of your governor, your legislator, or anybody in government to pursue and obtain your safety, your happiness, and your privacy. It is your individual right to define those, value those, and secure them for yourself. Section 2, every person may freely speak, write, or publish his or her sentiments on all subjects, being responsible for the abuse of this right. A law may not restrain or abridge the liberty of speech or press. Now, Section 3, the people have a right to instruct their representatives to petition government for a redress of grievances and assemble freely to consult for the common good. Now, let me ask you, does this say unless the governor decides it's unsafe? There is no caveat there, and there is no exception. You have an inalienable right to instruct your representatives to petition government for a redress of grievances and to assemble freely. That would include peaceful assembly, not violent assembly, to consult for the common good. I want you to go down to Section 4, which says, nothing in this subdivision supersedes or modifies any provision of this Constitution, including the guarantees that a person may not be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, or denied equal protection of the laws as provided in Section 7. So we know, let's just go ahead and skip down there, that Section 7 is all going to be about the security of life, liberty, and property and due process of law. They're giving us that information there. Subsection 4, 5 also says, this subsection does not repeal, nullify, expressly implication any constitutional or statutory exception to the right of access to public records meetings. Okay, so you have a right to public records. Yeah, all right, so go down to Section 4. Free exercise and enjoyment of religion without discrimination or preference are guaranteed. Did you catch that? You have a right to freedom of religion and the right to free expression of that religion. Now, here's what you have to understand. This liberty of conscience does not excuse acts that are licentious or inconsistent with the peace or safety of the state. That is not talking about viruses, that peace or safety of the state. What it's referring to is the first principle of liberty, that liberty has no limit other than you cannot harm or control the right of another. So what it's simply saying is that if your religious practice harms or controls the right of another, then it is now it is now no longer a liberty you can express because you are violating someone else's liberty. Does that make sense? Liberty has a definition that I give when I teach my younger students. I turn it into a mathematical equation so it's easier for them to understand. That liberty equals freedom plus morality. Remember, there's self-governance in here. Liberty is the freedom that we are born with, as we are born naturally free. But we don't want to live in a place where people are free, where freedom alone is the cornerstone for government. Because if freedom alone is the cornerstone of government, then I'm free to lie, I'm free to steal, I'm free to murder, I'm free to do whatever I want to do, regardless of how that hurts you. Freedom, liberty is actually that freedom, understanding that I can do all those things, but there are some things that I will not do because they harm or deprive another person's liberty. And it all hinges upon self-governance. Think about that. Do laws stop crimes? No, they do not. If laws stopped crimes, America would be a crime-free place because we have way too many laws. So when we keep turning to laws to stop people from doing bad things, we're looking at a problem with the wrong solution. The solution is not to create more laws, because more laws means that there's going to be more disrespect for society, because more laws means that there are laws you won't be able to comply with because they contradict with your liberty and they contradict with your conscience. And when a law contradicts your liberty and contradicts your conscience, then you have a conundrum. Do you follow the law and violate your conscience, which is the supreme property right that you have? Or do you violate your conscience and follow the law? In either situation, what you have is the law and society loses respect for law, and then you inevitably get the decline of society. So remember, liberty equals freedom plus morality. Soldiers may not be quartered, no standing armies in Section 5. Section 7. A person may not be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law or denied equal protection under the law. So make sure that you understand that this is one of your inalienable rights, to not be denied of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. Let's see. Section 13. The right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures may not be violated. A warrant may not be issued except on probable cause, supported by oath or affirmation, particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized. That is an exact duplication of the Fourth Amendment in the U.S. Constitution. So we also have to understand that you have an inalienable right to be secure in your property from the government taking your property without a warrant, without a proper warrant, and a proper recognition of the property rights of the people. So if the governor comes to you and says you have to shut down your business, and he doesn't give you a warrant to shut down your business, he doesn't give you any due process to shut down your business, this is a violation of your rights. Now, somebody might say that the government has an authority to take your property based on the public good. So let's look at Section 19. Private property may be taken or damaged for a public use. Look at this now. Only when just compensation ascertained by a jury, unless waived, has first been paid to in court for the owner. If the government's going to claim that there is a public use reason for you to shut down your business, they can only do that constitutionally through a jury, and only after just compensation has been given. So these are your inalienable rights as listed here in Article 1, the Declaration of Rights. How is it that not only can your governor violate separation of powers by writing ordinances or orders that are enforced by law when he's specifically prohibited by the Constitution from doing that? How is it that these government orders can tell you to shut down your business, which equates to a taking of your business? I think one of the most ridiculous things that I've heard is that the government justify, well, we're not taking your business because it's just temporary. It's until the crisis is over, and it really doesn't matter what they claim the public good is. The Constitution says, yes, the government can take your property for public good, but you have to have a jury trial first that determines just compensation, and you have to be given money before they can shut down your business. So even if it's temporary, How is it just because it's temporary, it's not a shutdown? It's not a taking. Does that mean that I could go to Governor Inslee's house, or I'm sorry, Governor Newsom's house, and take his car from him and tell him, oh, no, I'm not taking your car because I'm only going to be driving it for about 3 weeks. It's only temporary. Do you think Governor Newsom would disagree that that's a taking? I'm taking his car for 3 weeks just because I told him I would turn it back to him in 3 weeks? How is it that that applies to us and makes logical sense to us when it's somebody's car and a private person trying to take somebody's car? But somehow it evades our understanding when we're talking about government taking our property, especially when the Constitution is so very clear. I'll go back and remind you of the oath of office. I do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California against all enemies, foreign and domestic. At this point, your governor has become a domestic enemy of your Constitution. He has become a domestic enemy of your rights. And I will tell you, your state legislators bear the same responsibility because they have refused now to defend the Constitution and the rights of the people. And so have your sheriffs because they have failed to live up to their oath and defend the Constitution and secure your rights. So what are the solutions? We'll go back to our PowerPoint. So what are the solutions? Okay. Listen to what Thomas Jefferson says. Whenever the general government assumes undelegated powers, its acts are unauthoritative, void, and of no force. What you have is a situation where the governor is assuming an undelegated power. Does the Constitution delegate to him the authority to create executive orders with the force of law? You won't find that in your state constitution. What they'll tell you is, oh, but we created an emergency statute. I'll remind you, the oath of office does not say that you will support and defend statutes. It says you will support and defend the Constitution of the U.S. and the California Constitution. And when a law conflicts with the Constitution, then you have to follow the Constitution over the law. This is the solution, understanding that when the government exercises power that is not delegated, its acts are unauthoritative, void, and of no force. Let's pretend by way of analogy. Let's pretend that I've just stolen Miss Debbie's car. Okay? Now, do I have I've just stolen Miss Debbie's car. Do I have the authority to drive Miss Debbie's car? No, because I've stolen it, right? Do I have the authority to sell Miss Debbie's car? No, because my power over Miss Debbie's car was never delegated. Therefore, my acts on that vehicle are void and of no force, unauthoritative. If I sell Miss Debbie's car, is it a legally binding sale? No, because I have no legal authority over it. Now, here's the question. This is all about the solutions now, because somebody's going to tell you your only solution to dealing with the governor writing laws when he doesn't have the authority to write them is to sue him. So let me ask you, does Miss Debbie have to sue me to get her car back? Well, the answer is no, because she is the rightful owner. All you have to do, Miss Debbie, if I steal your car and they catch me, is to take the title of the vehicle to your local officials and they have to return it to you as the person who has the properly delegated authority over that vehicle. Now, if I sold Miss Debbie's car, the poor guy that actually bought it from me, now he has to sue me because the sale was void. You have to understand that to give you the only option is to sue the governor is dangerous and ridiculous. If your only option is to sue the governor, it's danger. It's unnecessary because you're already the owner of your rights. You don't have to sue the governor for that. The Constitution already declares the limit of the government, already declares that you are the owner of your rights. Remember, inalienable rights of the people. But it's dangerous, it's ridiculous, it's dangerous because if your only option is to sue the governor, that would be like Miss Debbie suing me for stealing her vehicle, showing up in court and finding out that the judge and the jury are all my family members, right? Think about it. If you're going to be suing the governor, where are you suing the governor? In court, which is part of the government, paid by the government. And your judges are either appointed by the governor or get their money from the government. And then what you have to admit, if your only option is to sue the governor in the government's court, is that, guess what? It is the government's sole authority to determine what rights are yours and what rights are not. It's the sole government's authority to determine what is the power of the governor, even when the Constitution says otherwise. You see, what's happening, Jefferson is telling us, is that when your governor or your legislature or your judiciary assumes an undelegated power, it is actually stealing that power from you. It is stealing that power from the legislature. I know this says if the federal government uses a power outside the Constitution, it has to steal it from the state. If the governor uses a power outside the Constitution, he must steal that power from the legislative branch or from the people themselves. Let me show you what Alexander Hamilton said. There is no position which depends on clearer principle than every act of a delegated authority, contrary to the tenor of the commission under which it's exercised, is void. Your Constitution is very clear. No legislative act, therefore, contrary to the Constitution, can be valid. That's why your oath of office is not to the laws. Because if you have to take an oath of office to the law, then what you're in a conflict if the law then conflicts with the Constitution, because an act of the legislature, for example, creating an emergency statute that grants the governor authority that the Constitution does not delegate, because your legislature, go read that section in your Constitution, your legislature does not have the authority to change or amend the Constitution by legislation. But when your legislature says the governor can issue orders with the effect and cause of law, what they're functionally doing is amending the Constitution of the state of California without actually amending it. They're just doing it by law. Look at what James Wilson says. The power of the Constitution predominates, and therefore anything that shall be enacted by Congress contrary thereto will not have the force of law. So what is your solution? The solution has to be that we learn and understand the state constitution and the limits that the state constitution places on government. It is your responsibility to know what this Constitution says, because Your elected people are taking an oath. They are making a promise to you to support and defend this Constitution. And inherent in that agreement is to support and defend and secure your rights. Remember, the only purpose for government to exist is to secure your rights. So as I finish here, the solution is locally and individually. I'll ask you this question. What obligation do you have to follow an order that is null and void? What obligation do you have to follow an order that is null and void? Well, you have no legal obligation. You have no moral obligation. The only thing that causes you to follow an order that is null and void is this. Because we've either been deceived with miseducation and misunderstanding of what actually is supposed to happen, or we have succumbed to fear and enslaved ourselves. Samuel Adams said this: "No people will tamely surrender their liberties nor be easily subdued when knowledge is diffused and virtue is preserved." He said, on the contrary, when the people become universally ignorant and debauched in their manners, they will sink underneath their own weight without the aid of foreign invaders. And that's what's happened. The people of California have become universally ignorant to their own Constitution. I mean, if you're honest, how many of you, this is the first time you've seen some of these sections of your Constitution? I want to share this with you again, because I think we need to go over this again. Your governor has not only violated Article 20, Section 3, by violating his oath. He has violated Article 5, which limits his power. He has violated Article 4 by stealing power from the legislative branch. He has violated Article 3, Section 3 by stealing power from the legislative branch by exercising the authority to write laws when he does not have that authority. Your governor has violated Article 1, Section 1 of the Constitution because he has violated your inalienable right to enjoy your property. Your private business is your property. You have a right. Your Constitution enshrines and recognizes your personal, individual inalienable right to enjoy your property. And that's been taken from you. It gives you an inalienable natural right to defend your property, to possess your property. You don't possess your property if the government shuts it down by force. The government possesses your property. You know, I used to think that the California Constitution was missing something. Because in your California Constitution, you have Section 1. You have Section 2, which is freedom of speech and freedom of press. You have Section 3, which is the right to peaceably assemble, the right to assemble for a redress and petitioner for a redress of your grievances. You have Section 4, which is your right to freedom of religion. You have Section 7, which is the equivalent of the 5th and 6th Amendments in the U.S. Constitution. You have, actually, it's 7.5, 7 and 9 and 10 and 11, all subsections of Article 6 Amendment, the 6th Amendment. You have 12, and which is 12 goes along with, I saw cruel and unusual punishments in there, which is all Article the 7th and 8th Amendments. You have the Section 13, which is the 4th Amendment. You have Section 15, which is also part of the 6th Amendment. You have Section 16, which is part of the 6th and 7th Amendments. Oh, there's 17, which cruel and unusual punishments is the 8th Amendment. Now, have you been keeping up with those? Which amendment is missing? Do you see anywhere in your California Constitution that the people of California shall have the right to keep and bear arms? I used to think that was missing. And then it occurred to me it's not missing. It's right there in Article 1, Section 1, that you have an free and independent, inalienable right to protect your life, defend life, liberty, and protect property. How do you do that? You do that because you have a right to keep and bear arms. You see, if you don't have a right to keep and bear arms, you're not defending your life and your liberty. You're not protecting your property. So California has in it the right to keep and bear arms. Samuel Adams said this: among the natural rights of the colonists are these: first, life; second, liberty; third, property, together with the right to support and defend them in the best manner they can. That's what your Constitution says. You have an inalienable right to support and defend your life, your liberty, and property in the best manner that you can. And that includes the right to protect them by the right to keep and bear arms. That is your inalienable right. All of these things are being violated with impunity. And I can only believe that that's because the people of California have become fundamentally ignorant as to what their rights are and what their Constitution actually says. And the solution is these orders violate your Constitution. So they are null and void. And you must not comply with them. Now, individually, that's the virtue action. The virtue is courage. Individually, you have to have the courage to say, I will not comply. But the value of a republic is that you're never supposed to have to stand alone. It's essential that you learn and you understand your duty to not comply. Samuel Adams also said, when we tamely surrender to a lawless attack upon our liberty, we encourage it and we involve others in our doom. It's a serious consideration that should weigh heavy upon our hearts, that ages and millions yet unborn will be the miserable sharers of our experience. By not refusing to comply, by going along with these constitutionally invalid orders, what we're actually doing is causing our children and grandchildren and future generations to be subjects to a government that has no limit at all. That's our inherent duty, to say we will not comply, not because it's about us, because what we do now sets the precedent for future generations. Alexander Hamilton said, it's what we owe to God and man. And if we don't do what's right today, he said, our children's children will curse us. That's why this is not light and transient. That's why this is so important. And we have to have the courage as individuals to say, I will do what's right for the future, regardless of the consequences that come my way. And what you should find is that when you stand, others will stand with you. And you don't have to stand alone. Now, number one, this is why having a constitutional sheriff is so important. Because your constitutional sheriff does not work for the state. He does not work for the governor. He does not work for the county. He does not work for the city. Your sheriff is a constitutionally elected representative of the people, which means in his oath, like everybody else in California, but more importantly, because he is the local representative and the highest authority in the county, It is his duty to say to the governor, no, I'm not going to let you shut down my businesses. In your county, the state police is subject to the permission of your sheriff. In your county, the state police, the local police, are subject to the permission of your sheriff. In your county, the federal government and their agents are subject to the permission of your sheriff. And that's not KrisAnne Hall's opinion. That's actually words from James Madison in Federalist 51 and Federalist 39, and quoted by the Supreme Court of the United States as the jurisdiction of the states and the local governments. So part of the victory in refusing to comply is having a constitutional sheriff that stands with you. But what have we learned from these protests that we've seen? You don't have to have a violent protest. But if you have a number of people standing in unity, the government will stand down. If you have a whole shopping mall of businesses that refuse to close, what in the world is the government going to do about that? If hairdressers across the state say, I don't care what you say, we're staying open, then what can they do about that? Because here's the thing, doesn't your state constitution say that you have all people are entitled to equal protection under the law? Didn't we read that? Well, when the governor says that Walmart can stay open and the grocery store can stay open and the big chains can stay open, but mom and pop can't stay open and the little businesses can't stay open, now you have another violation of your rights in the Constitution to equal protection under the law. People always ask me, how do they get away with this? How do they do this, KrisAnne? There's only one answer to that question. Because you let them. If these protests across America are showing us anything, is that when people become united, you don't have to be violent, but when people become united, the government has no choice but to stand down. And that's what you need. You need unity in your business owners to just keep your doors open. But that requires knowledge and it requires virtue. And it has to require a conscious recognition that the tyranny you accept today will be the servitude your future generations will suffer, or the war they will have to fight to be free. I do not see a war in our immediate future. I do not see the people coming together and fighting. But I do see the opportunity to win without violence. We have the opportunity to peacefully push our government back into its rightful box. But that won't happen until we get the courage to stand. So let me look at the questions that you have in here. Brian, I would just simply say to your question about your mom and your stepdad not having an irrational fear of guns, the only thing that's going to change that is education. So you're going to have to teach them. And I think maybe the best way to teach them, Brian, is to buy them a gun and take them shooting on the range. Every person that I have taught that has never shot a gun before, you take them to the range and let them shoot and they're hooked for life. See, it's the intimidation and fear that keeps them from doing it. So you just have to overcome that fear. Let's see. We talked about the fact that you don't have a voice. You can have a voice by coming united. And here's the other thing. Linda talks about they threatened to pull your business license. One of the things that I hope will come out of all of this is for the people to realize that a business license is not necessary for your business. A business license is an ownership certificate for the government. When you submit to a business license, what you're actually saying is that the government owns your business and you don't. And business licenses do not keep you safe. They're just simply a false premise for the government to have control over your business. Hey, what you need? Oh, sorry. My husband's getting ready to go to work, so. We have to get rid of business licensing. And one of the things that we can do by standing up to the government and saying, guess what? Pull my license. I don't care. I'm still going to have my business. And that's where unity in business has to take place. You guys got to unite together in this. David Edwards says, does the U.S. Constitution rule over the state constitution? Well, that's kind of a trick question. The U.S. Constitution is the supreme law of the land in matters that are delegated to the federal government. In matters that are not delegated to the federal government, then the state constitution is superior to the U.S. To federal laws. Okay, and so you can't say that the state constitution is superior to the U.S. Constitution, because the U.S. Constitution already claims that the state constitution is superior to federal laws when the power is not delegated. I hope that kind of makes sense. So the 10th Amendment says the powers not delegated to the United States are reserved to the states. So the state constitution, the state governments are not in unlimited submission to the federal government, but the states have agreed by contract to follow the Constitution under delegated power. Bessie says, what happens when the sheriff or law enforcement is handcuffing you and taking you in because they are following the governor's unlawful orders? Well, it looks like you're going to jail, Bessie. But the problem is, then you've got to you have to be persistent, and now you're in the legal system. You've got to fight that. Like I said, there has to be a virtue courage aspect here that says, regardless of what happens, I'm going to do what's right. If they're going to do what's wrong, that's not going to keep me from doing what's right. I actually have a history lesson on my website, libertyfirstuniversity.com, that shows courses of events that led to our revolution. And our founders suffered a lot more than simply going to jail. Now, I will say to you, if you are a Christian, that you need to pray about this and make sure that this is something that you need to stand. The stand in that way you need to take. Like the hairdressers around the country that are saying, look, you can take me to jail, but I'm not shutting down my business. One of them actually was taken to jail, and what happened? The people stood behind her. I mean, I think they sent her like $500,000, which paid for all her legal fees, opened up her business again. And I think that's what we have to understand. Like I told you, when one person stands, then many will stand with you. Please explain the governor's mandate to wear a mask, Linda asks. Well, let me ask Linda, show me in the Constitution where the governor has the authority to make such a mandate, and then I can explain it to you. Otherwise, all I can explain to you is that the governor's mandate to wear a mask is null and void because it does not exist on a constitutional authority. Cindy says, what about the new order that Newsom says the whole state? Oh, well, we already talked about that. By the way, the Americans with Disability Act says that you can't force someone to wear a mask when it will be contrary to their health. And the HIPAA laws say that you don't have to tell them, that it's against the law for them to ask what health issue you have. So it doesn't have to just simply be a respiratory thing. There are plenty of people who are claustrophobic. There are plenty of people who have PTSD problems that couldn't wear masks. So the governor would be violating federal law in that aspect by mandating a mask and then asking you or making you prove why you have a medical condition that prevents you from wearing that. Dave says it does make sense. Thank you very much. Charlotte asks, do our local and county city officials follow the state constitution as well as our state legislators? Yes, everybody in the state of California elected to office takes that oath that we showed in Article 22 of your Article 20 of your Constitution. So everybody who takes that oath must follow the state constitution, must follow the U.S. Constitution, because that's their promise to you. And so that is the end of our class today. I hope that I've been able to help you. I realize that it's probably, I always tell people, if you attend one of my classes, it's kind of like drinking from a fire hose, and you need some time to digest what I've given you. But I'm going to type this in there for you. This is my online Constitution training program, libertyfirstuniversity.com. And Natalie, if your group would like to have a group rate to access our constitutional training, we teach American history, we teach civics and government, we teach the proper role of government, and then we also teach the Constitution specifically. We teach the right, individual liberty rights. We teach the checks and balances, especially the check and balance of the state on the federal government. We teach all of these things, and we have lots of different courses. And in those, like the course that I would be showing you today, would be broken down into 10-minute segments. So it's a little bit easier for you to digest. You watch it at your own pace. I do expect you to do to do more than just listen like today. So when you take the Liberty First University courses, I want you to actually print out the Constitution, print out the papers that I have referenced, read over them, study them, to do a lot of self-study. I'll guide you, I'll disciple you through the self-study, but I want you to get the most out of this, because these courses are worthy of the highest institutions of learning. These are not just me in front of my webcam. These are actually professionally videoed and edited and produced. And most of the classes actually have PDFs that you download that go along with it. So let me know, Natalie, if you guys are interested in the group rate for libertyfirstuniversity.com for your members, and we'll make sure we get set up with that. Grace says, if I choose not to wear a mask at a restaurant and they refuse to serve me, can I file a complaint against the restaurant? You can file a complaint under the Americans for Disability Act. Realize that that's going to take some time, obviously, and it will also take a little bit of effort. So you can file that complaint. I would also suggest that you file a complaint with the Better Business Bureau. And when you file the complaint with the Better Business Bureau, I would advise you that you don't have to mention that they refuse to let you enter without a mask. You just simply say, this business does not respect my medical disability according to the Americans for Disability Act. Okay. And that's how I would put that with the Better Business Bureau. And I don't know if you have like an Angie's List or something like that locally that your businesses are connected that way. So I will leave you with what Bessie says, but I don't know if Bessie realizes is she's actually quoting Thomas Paine. Thomas Paine says, it's not in numbers that we gather our strength. It is unity in which our strength lies. So our numbers, unit, she did hashtag unity is strength. Unity is actually more important than numbers. So if you have a unity, a small unity of business owners that are standing together and will not waver, then you will have a strong power. Remember, the Bible says it only takes a threefold cord. Do you have any other questions, Natalie?
I think the only one I really had was if you can briefly touch on the contact tracing, because I know a lot of people, yeah, and what happens if they show up at your door.
Well, let me share something with you really quick. On my website, KrisAnneHall.com, I have an open letter / editorial for contact tracing. In that, I explain to you the Supreme Court cases that will give you the legal standing to sue the state if they engage in government-led contact tracing. And contact tracing by geophone tracking without a warrant for every single phone. So if they don't have express permission from the owner of the phone and they do contact tracing on a phone without a warrant, under Carpenter v. U.S., the Supreme Court said that is absolutely unconstitutional. Under Kylo v. U.S., if the government uses infrared technology to look inside private buildings without a warrant, it is also a violation of your privacy. Now, those are the two ways that I know that contact tracing has been proposed, through drones and infrared technology to see how many people are in a building. You know, are they too many people gathered in a building? It's a way to circumvent going inside. Or through geo-tracking on your cell phone. And what's amazing under constitutional law is that you rarely have a situation where a case so perfectly is on point with your situation. And these two cases are so perfectly on point with our situation that it would be very, very difficult for the state to win if a lawsuit was brought under these two cases. So if you go to KrisAnneHall.com, I'll take you there. Go to KrisAnneHall.com. You see this. By the way, I'm having what we have is In Defense of Liberty training. I'm going to tell you about that while we're here. September 4th through 7th. It's constitutional training, hand-to-hand self-defense, handgun accuracy and precision, and real-world shooter defense. This is our instructor. His name is Larry Stevenson. He's also known as the Bearded Black Cowboy. It's 3 days of training that will change your life. And we've been doing this now. This is the 3rd year that we've done this, 4th year that we've done this. And we've had people attend our class. It's a very small, limited attendance. So if this is something that's you're interested in, you've got to sign up now because the slots go quick. If you've never held a handgun before, this is the perfect class for you. You will leave so confident and so trained in just 3 days because Larry is amazing. If you are someone that feels themselves to be an expert in gun ownership, this is also a class for you. We've had students that were, actually Larry teaches Navy SEALs. So unless you are proficient beyond a Navy SEAL, then maybe Larry can't help you. But if he can help Navy SEALs, I think he can help everybody. This is our radio show. And, these are the podcasts. Like today was, I haven't put up today's yet. This was yesterday's, and these are, if you click on them, it takes you to the audio podcast, but it also takes you to a link to the YouTube, so you can go there. Also, then when you scroll down, you get the articles, and here's the model open letter editorial. Just click on that and it will open up for you. So that's a little tutorial of the KrisAnne Hall website.
Awesome. Well, KrisAnne, thank you so much for taking your valuable time and extensive knowledge of our Constitution. I know everybody, we have learned so much, and I'm going to go, I wrote down that legislative website, and I'm going to go print it out.
So Peggy Wilson just asked, where's the self-defense class held? It's held in Whitesboro, Texas. And it's held on the best firearms training range accessible to civilians in the country. It is the best range. And we do such unconventional training. We teach how, Larry teaches on how to escape from a kidnapping, how to break free from zip ties, how to keep you from being carjacked, all kinds of really, really amazing stuff. And so you, again, if you click on that banner when you go to KrisAnneHall.com, Lisa says, what is the name of your book on state sovereignty? The name of my book on state sovereignty is called Sovereign Duty. And I'll just go ahead and type that in there for you guys. So I didn't mean to interrupt you, but
that's okay. That's okay. You go for it.
Will the Americans Disability Act not cover not wearing a mask in a public school for children? The public schools are still bound by the Americans with Disability Act even more so than a private business because they accept federal funding. So if you don't want your child to wear a mask in public school, then you can tell them they don't have to. Thank you, Natalie.
You're awesome. Thanks, KrisAnne. We appreciate
God
it.
bless everybody.
Bless you. I'll hand it back over to Debbie.
Oops. All right. Thank you all for joining. Please go to KrisAnneHall.com and again, check out her stuff she has to offer. That's how she gets paid as a donation for doing these town halls. And anytime she speaks, if you're interested in having her come and have a meeting set up for you, you can go to her website too and contact her and have it set up. And you know, any donation is appreciated. $5, whatever you want to give is greatly appreciated. So thanks, Natalie, for setting this up. Natalie is the one that was in touch with KrisAnne and suggested this town hall. So thank you, Natalie. Really appreciate it. So I think that's we're going to end our I'm going to unmute everybody. I think if I can. I don't know. Maybe I can not.
Debbie, could you answer maybe when our next meeting is, or if we have people on here who aren't?
Oh yes. Well, okay. So this was done through New California, and New California is a movement to get our state back using the Constitution, and so you know, it's kind of, we have a lot of resources out there. You can go to newcaliforniastate.com and or newcacentralcoast.com. I put those websites inside the chat. And we have Paul Preston, who is our president for the movement, shares every single week, twice a week, on Sunday night and Wednesday nights at 7 o'clock. And if you can go to the website and newcacentralcoast.com, and you get the phone number and the access code, and he shares with you every week, twice a week, what's going on with our movement. And it's really exciting news, keeps you really informed, and knows a lot of things that aren't being said in the news, obviously, because the mainstream media is not covering a lot of this stuff. So that's that resource. He also has a radio show every day, and he's in the morning, where he shares about it, a lot about New California stuff as well. So this is our next meeting. I don't know what our next town hall is. This is my last town hall directing. Deb Andrews is our new chair and taking it from here. And so that stuff will be announced. I'm sure, you know, on our newsletter and on our Facebook page. So
I would just like to remind everyone that last Saturday of every month is our Freedom Rally,
Right.
Same place, which is right by Costco on Hollister. We'll send more information out. Just don't forget about it. Last Saturday of every month.
Right, that's in Goleta, and then we also have one in Lompoc. That's this Saturday. That's on the third Saturday of the month, and then the fourth Saturday is Aurora Grande, and the first Saturday is in Santa Maria, and the second one is in Paso Robles. So we have freedom rallies every single Saturday up until Election Day. So please go to the ones you can. I try to go to all of them except for Goleta. It's a little. That's the furthest one for me, but maybe one of these days I'll make it there. And yeah, so go there and support. It's only for an hour. It's 11 o'clock to 12 o'clock. Bring your flags, wear your patriotic clothes, bring signs. Diane Hose who is the one that has all the flags and signs. If you don't have any, she has those to let you borrow as well. So it's a great time. A lot of times we get a lot of news media out there covering it, and you know, when the protesters come out and they protest, you know, you just bless them. And, you know, just shine your light, you know, shine God's light on them. You don't have very many of them, but yeah, they're out there. So it's a great way to stand your ground, get involved with the community. Like KrisAnne said, you know, it takes one and others will follow. And it's true, because these freedom rallies are gathering momentum. Up to right before we had the coronavirus outbreak, we were up to like 150 people, you know, at our Santa Maria Freedom Rally. And then I know Paso Robles has had a couple not too long ago, and they've had a lot of people, you know, 700, 1,000, I think, or something like that, for speaking. And so anyways, it's just get involved with it in any way you can. It's really important to be boots on the ground at this time, and just get plugged in and just do what you can. So does anybody else would like to say anything?
I'm really tired of wearing the mask, and to hear on TV today that our sweet old governor doubled down on it. No.
Well,
we all stop wearing them.
Right. I don't wear a mask. You know, if I wear them under my chin.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
You know, because it doesn't say where you have to wear it, but because I can't breathe with it. So I have to go in the store, and I have to.
And now it's hot outside, 70, 80 degrees. The virus dies in 1 minute if it's 80 degrees.
And just remember what KrisAnne said. This is not a law. There is no law. He did a mandate. There's a huge difference there.
Right.
They can't. How are they going to enforce something that's not a law?
Right.
And you still have the Disabilities Act.
Right. And I technically, legally have disability for breathing asthma.
And you don't even,
I mean, God has healed me, but when I have that mask on, I really start getting short of breath. It's horrible.
It's horrible.
It's just I only have it on for a minute to go inside the store or go inside, then put it down like Deb said, you know, but it's ridiculous. I think I'm going to just say I'm refusing to wear my mask, and you can't refuse me service based on the Disability Act. Or if you do, I'm suing you.
Yeah.
And keep up. What somebody said, they walked in the store and went on and did their grocery shopping. And
I did. That was me. I did. I was really civil disobedience. Yeah, young kid was handing out masks at Smart and Final on Spring Street. And he said to me, "Do you have a mask?" And I said, "I'm not wearing a mask," because he was going to hand me one.
Right.
And he says, "Well, then you can't go in." And I said, "Well, you know about the ADA, right? American Disabilities Act. Doesn't matter. You can't go in." And I said, "Well, I'm going in. And if you're going to have to, call the police, please, because I'm going in to grocery shop." And then he said, "Well, they'll stop you in there." And I walked in, and I just needed one thing. I just wanted to get a frozen pizza. That's all I wanted. And I went and got it. Half the people in there had their masks down. They didn't even have them on their face because it was so hot. Nobody said a word to me. And he basically told me I wouldn't never be allowed in that store again. And one of my other friends said that her husband went there and they literally called the police on him.
Wow.
So
well, I have to
crazy.
We were at a protest just a couple days ago with BLM was there, and all of our group did not have a mask on, and all the other group did. And the police, we were talking to the police, and the police did not have masks on. So it's like they're not going to arrest you. You know, I mean, they're on our side.
They don't have enough manpower to arrest. How many people? There's 32,000 people in our county. How many police do they have?
We all stop wearing a mask. They can't arrest everybody.
Right.
And so, Linda, what happened when they called the police on that man?
I guess he just left. They gave him a warning that, you know, he was being disruptive or whatever, and he left. Yeah.
Wow.
Debbie, would you be able to introduce Debbie Andrews? Is she still on?
Deb, are you still on? I don't think she is.
They're probably gone.
Okay, that's okay.
She was on her phone, so I don't see her phone number. Yeah.
Awesome. Unity. We need to start it.
Yeah.
Somebody got to stand up. Linda already did.
Yeah, and I'll be doing it. I can tell I'm going to be doing it some more because it just grieves me. it grieves me so. It's just horrible. And I see people driving, if somebody has to wear them for health reasons, please do. We're not saying you shouldn't.
Right.
But what we're saying is, why do healthy people have to do this? It's not okay.
Right.
I don't know.
And it's hot now, so the virus dies. In
It's
1
hot
minute,
Paso, baby. It's like 95, 100 degrees right now. Yeah.
And we double down today and say if we go outside, we got to wear a mask too.
No.
Really?
It's just part of the thing to make people sick, more sick, because that's all it's going to do, and that's going to be their second wave, is because all these people wearing masks
Yeah.
and getting sick from it.
Yeah.
You know,
They already saying the numbers are increasing, but of course, like someone said, they're testing people now. So quite naturally, if you're testing people, more people now, the numbers are increasing. So-called, I don't even believe. It's hard to believe with 91-degree weather, 80-some degree weather, this virus is still going on. When they said it dies in 1 minute in 80-degree weather.
wow, yeah.
Yeah, it's going. Yeah, the more COVID and it's getting hotter.
Charlotte.
You guys, my biggest takeaway from that was unity. You know, not big numbers, but unity. And so I say we declare a mask rebellion.
Yes.
That's what I say.
That's what we say. Let's do it.
No mask. We should call one day to be no mask day.
No,
one day, the rest of the day, but we should say no mask day over all of California. And then it's non and void based on, get the amendments that she told us, have that printed, hand it out to everyone. Another thing we could do, because we know it's coming up, it's going to come back around, but go back to our businesses and try to see, okay, if they tell us to shut down again, are you willing to stand up and say you would not shut down? And then show them the law, show them the rules based on this, and then get them unified, because you know it's coming back up. You know, we know the second wave is coming.
Yep. We could come up with like 5 different things that she just talked about.
Yep.
And go and just build it and tie it into New California.
Yeah.
Time and tie it so to say if New California doesn't recognize this. No, what's that?
Great idea, Charlotte. I love that.
Yeah. Just declare it now. We just go and pass a resolution, and I think we also should pass a resolution
dealing with the masks
that declares that this and this is communism, and it will never be part of New California, because if somebody needs to stand up and declare it.
Can we declare that we're not gonna what was that first thing that you said, that we're not gonna do that for the governor? We're not gonna.
We need to have a mask rebellion.
We will not comply.
A governor rebellion.
Yeah.
No mask day. No mask days with an S on the end.
Yeah, we'll say that again.
No mask days with an S on the end.
I keep testing the waters up here. I was now I work for Rhodey. So I was running around delivering for Home Depot. Now Home Depot, everybody's all in their mask and the stuff, and I walk in and I feel like I'm completely naked, and everybody looks at me like I'm lost my mind. And I just stand there, and nobody's tried to threaten me yet. And then there's this one place I go to, and I deliver tires from American Tire. Nobody in this entire warehouse, that whole company, has all the appropriate sheets of the COVID stuff on their front door. Nobody wears a mask on their staff. No one.
Thank you. That's a good company.
Solidarity starting from little pockets.
Yeah.
If New California were to stand up and say, put a resolution out and do it across all our counties and get really involved in it, because the law is on our side and so is unity.
Yes.
Hey, Lottie said something awesome on the chat. She said, if they refuse you service, then you can let them know you're going to contact the Better Business Bureau to complain.
Right. And the Disability Act.
There's another thing that
like the Disability Act, that you know that you didn't follow its rules.
Somebody, I think it was, I thought it was maybe from one of you guys, but I'll send it to you. There's like 3 pages of something that came off of Facebook, and I screen captured all 3 of it, and it is completely against OSHA laws to wear a mask.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, across all hospitals, all forms of businesses, Home Depot, the airline, you know, is it OSHA, anything that says that, you know, there are certain oxygen levels that have to be maintained.
Yeah.
So the mask does not, the mask violates everything, every OSHA law. The mask is it's on our side, OSHA laws, and nobody's talking about that.
Yeah.
So we could just write up like a 1-page thing, but and pass a resolution. We could put the whole New California state on
You know,
the
get all
Zoom.
those and laminate them, and we can all just have them ready to pull out.
There you go. Let's do that. Debbie, we got a project. We're gonna pay you to do a project for us.
Yeah. Okay, Debbie, we got one. Yeah, I've been thinking about this, and we can have like a little collection of these cards, because the mask is one thing, and then
we can
there's
show
5
people.
more.
And
We-
say,
Oh,
here is New California, know your rights, know your constitution so you can
Know your constitutional rights.
we say, dear Jesus, come soon.
Beam us up, Lord. We're ready to go.
Yeah, I'm ready to be
Get us out of this
beamed.
mess.
And if you're telling me the
One-
tribulation is gonna be worse than this, I don't know.
We'll call them our unity cards, and we'll just start adding to the deck.
Yeah.
All right, you guys, love you.
love you too.
Hey, Charlotte. Charlotte, did you share your screen on purpose?
Oh, no. I don't do anything on purpose anymore. I was on Ricardo. Ricardo and I listened to it off of Ricardo's machine, and I didn't touch a button.
I didn't see anything.
You
My
didn't see-
whole screen is white and it says that I'm viewing Charlotte's screen.
Really?
Yeah, so is mine.
screen right now is all white.
Well,
Yeah.
that's weird.
So at
Oh,
at the bottom where it says share screen, you probably need to unshare your screen.
Oh, well, I wasn't managing the controls for the last hour.
let's see, because it doesn't have on here. Let's see.
And so,
Hey, Charlotte, send us that thing about OSHA.
okay, I'm going to do that too.
Or send it to Deb, and Deb will send it, Debbie, and she'll send it to us. I'm volunteering you, Debbie.
Debbie always looks like she's on 1950s TV show.
Yeah, look at her.
What do you
With all the
Thanks.
flags and hands back there in the back.
Right. What do you guys think of the
I
group
miss you guys. I
New
miss you
I
guys.
love it.
educational platform?
Hey, it's fabulous.
I want to do a shout out to Lisa. Last week, Lisa decided we're gonna have our
Grievance?
grievance anyway. Cause Debbie sent me a message saying, "Hey, FYI, 100 Black Lives Matters is at the courthouse." I'm thinking, "Oh crap, we're not going down there."
Make it look like
Like Lisa said, "No." And she's so quiet and sweet with that little sweet voice, but she stand her ground. She stand her ground. That's what I love about it. Is she loved the Lord and she loves me. And so, she's cool. And so she said, I'm gonna. She called me up. Well, I'm gonna have it because I think this is the very time that we need to stand up, and we can't let them bully us. And
No fear. No fear.
You're kind of tossing out. But in the future, Lisa, you got to consider everyone. And